Welcome back to Bay Area Psychology, where we're talking about New Year's resolutions and why we don't keep them. With us is Mary McCloy, and I had a question, which is, how do we handle our discouragement when we don't complete our goals?
I think one of the hardest things for most of us, especially those that are out there working and trying to make it happen, is being gentle with ourselves. There's a lot of different reasons, as we've already talked about, that goals don't get met. People don't come through, things happen differently, and I think one of the biggest things is just being gentle with ourselves when we maybe don't accomplish 100% of what we want, and also take credit for the 1% we did get accomplished. We can be really our own worst critics, and really if we do criticize that much, we almost get paralyzed.
That's right, we do. Have you ever worked with people that wound up becoming so discouraged that they just didn't continue to try?
Again, it goes back to that culture that we have here in the Silicon Valley. I think that a lot of people that are trying to achieve and make it happen have really high standards for themselves. Some of those are well reinforced by their spouse or their family. They should be out there doing it. And for those people that aspire to those standards, and there may be things that just happen and they don't make it, they really have a hard time. And people not only get discouraged, they can get depressed. And when people get depressed, then it creates a vicious cycle, so they're able to do even less. So it's kind of on a continuum. Yeah, they get discouraged and they try harder, and things don't work, and then they kind of get in that kind of paralysis that happens when things aren't happening the way you want them to.
So really, the only way out of this circle is to do something very different than maybe we've tried before. What kind of solutions, what kind of things can you think of that people could try, maybe that they haven't tried in the past?
Well, what I could do is just kind of talk about, when you're going to make a resolution, and when you want to create a goal, maybe some of the steps you might want to go through as you think about it. One of them, and the very first one is, and I hate this one a whole lot, you have to get out of your circle of comfort to grow. And what that means is being willing to take risks and try different things. And the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and this time getting different results.
Right.
And that really comes through with this thing about goals and resolutions. So the first thing is being willing to get out of your circle of comfort.
Can you give us an example of somebody doing that?
A person trying something new, being willing in a relationship area, being willing to ask people out, being willing to go to places where they might meet people so they could date. That would be getting out of their circle of comfort instead of waiting until Mr. Wonderful or Miss Wonderful comes and just finds me. And
so that doesn't work?
It happens.
I can't sit home and hope the doorbell's going to ring.
Well, you let me know if that works for you. But I don't think that happens that way.
It doesn't work, does it?
You kind of have to get out of your circle of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
The second big thing that a person needs to do is really know what their own values are.
Okay.
What do you want? What do you want to have happen in your life? Who are you?
Okay.
And I think one way that you can kind of begin to examine your values is, if you were to picture your ideal self, what would that ideal self look like?
Okay.
What would she be doing or he be doing?
Okay.
How would they feel? And then you can kind of get your values from that.
Okay.
I'm a kind of person that I value, I value social, in the work situation. I value social, I like to be with people, I like social situations. So for me, as you know, I have a private practice, but it's only part of my work life, because in a private practice, you're a little bit more socially isolated. So I have another part of my work life that fills my social needs. And I do that because I value things. And so when I think about creating my goals, I think about what I value.
Okay. And how, I'm sorry to interrupt, how can people determine their values?
What they need to do is spend time, and then, as I said before, think of what your ideal self is. What would that person look like? Would a person know by the life that you lead what your values are? That's a heavy question. I ask people to ask themselves, would people know what my values are by the life that I lead?
I've heard it said that, our values really are what we're doing with our time. And that's, you kind of keep a list of that maybe in a day timer, and you take a look at where your time's going, and it gets pretty clear pretty quickly.
Right.
Even though I may say, for example, that my family is my priority, if I looked at my day timer and I'm working 80 hours a week, it's pretty clear that right now my professional achievement is going to be my value. So I think part of it is healing the discrepancy between what I say is important to me and what I'm actually doing.
Right. And that can be a goal for you.
Okay.
So we talked about get out of your circle of comfort, examine your own values. The next step is looking at your long-range goals. Where do you want to be? What do you want to have happen in the long run? If you were living out your values, what would you be doing? You and I would probably be on vacation someplace, but how would you be living out those values and what would it look like? Then the next step is you take those long-range goals and you cut them up in little pieces.
Okay.
And you kind of create intermediate goals. I'm thinking of somebody who wants to lose weight. Someone who wants to lose weight because they want to be healthy, not because, you know, all the other kinds of things, but they want to do that for themselves. They want to feel good. You know, so their long-range goal maybe is to lose X number of pounds. So their intermediate goals then will be, okay, this is the food plan I'm going to use, this is my exercise plan, and they break it up in little pieces, the things that they're going to do. And then the next step, and I think it's the one that is the most important because it reinforces and reinforces, is to have a daily task list to complete that goal. So if you're a person that wants to lose weight, what are you going to be doing each day to achieve what it is that you want in terms of your own weight?
So maybe connecting what I'm doing with my behavior with the outcome. Because, you know, I know one of the struggles that people will frequently have is kind of get into a vague place where they'll say, well, how did this happen? How did I suddenly lose track of half my income last year? You know,
Yeah.
How did I suddenly gain 20 pounds? You know, and part of what you're talking about is making a real concrete connection between behavior and being conscious of what I'm doing.
Right.
That I'm the one that gets me in this situation frequently. It's not some external force that descends upon me. And
it goes back to what you said before, being more of an actor instead of a reactor in your own life. I always like that part, that this is not a dress rehearsal, this is the real thing.
We get one shot as far as we know.
And I want to be the star of my own life, not a supporting actress.
That's right.
So it goes, you know, in the same thing about taking responsibility and being more the manager of your life.
Well, and there's a lot of, you know, the downside to taking that responsibility is that it is more effort. It is more work. And of course the upside is that ultimately then you have more sense of empowerment. You have more say in what happens to you.
And as you said before too, you don't have to do it perfectly.
No.
You know, we may have some days that we're out there doing it and everything's going real cool. Another day, like, I don't care. Let it happen to me. It's okay. You know, I think it's kind of the balance that we create there so that we don't get all stressed out because we're not doing, you know, everything we got to do on that list. But it gives us guidance. It gives us a way of managing our life so our life just doesn't happen to us.
How did you determine that it was time for you to do it differently, for you to stop pushing your time the way you had been?
I'd like to tell you that I'm a very mature person, that I thought this all out. But you know, usually my motivation, and I know other people, my motivation is usually stimulated by pain. Something's not working. I'm tired, I'm stressed out, I'm frustrated. So that gets my attention, so I attempt to do things different. Okay. I try to look at people that aren't in my circle, in my comfort circle, and see how they do it. So to answer your question, I'd like to tell you that I do it a different way, but usually, you know, I get stressed out and go, you know, this is not working for me. I need to do it a different way.
Okay. So what are some symptoms of stress that we may need to change it? I mean, what are some indicators for us that it's not working?
I think it's going to be different for each person because, you know, some people have a great capacity for stress and other people don't have quite the capacity. I think one of the big, you know, right away they got to think of the physical things first. Okay. You know, fatigue is a big one, and, you know, sleeping problems, appetite problems, either eating a whole lot or eating a little bit. Okay. You know, the lack of being entertained, or the lack of having fun of your life, especially in things that used to give you fun in your life. So, you know, when these kinds of things start happening, you need to take a look at your life. You know, our bodies also talk to us. You know, people have problems with their stomach, or they have headaches, or they have eye aches, or, you know, they may have a lot of different kinds of just weird things, infections that happen all in a row. Okay. And you have to kind of have to take a look at that. You know, maybe my body's trying to talk to me and telling me, you know, I've got too much on my plate for right now. What could I do different?
Well, then what do you do if you like everything in your life? Okay, you know, because, well, I struggle with this also. This whole idea of having a bunch of things that I'm thoroughly enjoying doing, and something needs to go. And you know, part of where I get stuck is, you know, if it's something that I don't like to do, that's pretty easily identified. And I can say, okay, we'll just check that off. But other things, they enrich my life, and at the same time, having to make a decision that even though it's something I like to do, maybe it's not something that I should be doing right now.
You know, maybe it might go back to what it is that you really value. What you really value will help you kind of prioritize what it is important for you when you have a lot of things to do that are a lot of fun. And you know what happens for me is I try to do it all. And then after I do it all and I, you know, tire myself out, so, you know, that wasn't a very good idea, Mary. You know, one of these has got to go here. So, you know, if you want to do it in an intellectual way, you can say, okay, what do I value? How could I prioritize all these things that I want to do? And another way is trial and error. I think a lot of us live our lives, you know, trying things out and see what works. But again, I want to go back to being gentle with yourself. You know, suppose I've got a whole bunch of things to do and I do them all and I'm worn out. You know, I got to be gentle and go, isn't this interesting, Mary, you know, that you seem to want to do everything and now you're tired. So now what would you like to do about that? So it's just a different way of talking to myself and treating myself so we don't beat ourselves up about the way it is that we behave. We can learn better that way when we're not beating ourselves up about the things that we do.
And you know, something that occurred to me as you were speaking is that it may go back to that same sense of that there's not enough. There's not enough time. I'm not going to get another chance. You know, for a lot of us, it's like if we don't do all of this right now, this opportunity is going to pass, and then we'll have regret. And so I think a lot of us have this sense of I need to be in there, and I need to take every single opportunity. And it may be actually an extreme version of that belief that because I only get one shot at life, it's hard to slow down.
Right.
You know, and I've seen that with other people as
You know,
well.
another thing too, and I know we help people do this, is also examine their values. You know, for a lot of people, they thought more was better.
Yep.
More activity, I'm a better person. And now we're learning how to value downtime, slow down, meditation, quietness. So there's a way of helping people change their values and mix that all together so that you have that sense of peace that most of us are looking for.
Okay. And what does peace feel like? How do we know when we're there?
I think for me, peace is it's a calm feeling. It's a connected feeling. It's not something that I have all the time, but you know, once you've had that sense of peace, then you know what it's like when you seek after it. So you try to do the things in your life that will eventually have that as an outcome for you. And there are some days I think we make conscious decisions not to be peaceful because we're still trying to do it all.
Yeah. Well, how do you know when you're at peace?
I have that calm kind of feeling and that kind of connected feeling and sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to do with physical movement, but it's an inside feeling that I'm okay with myself, that the critic is off for a while. It's almost like listening to very melodic music where you just feel connected with the earth. You don't feel judgmental of yourself or other people. You feel like you're connected with them and they are with you. It's a feeling that, like I say, I don't have it all the time, but I'm glad I know what it is so that I know how to seek after it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that in many ways, one of the benefits you've had in studying this for yourself is being able to apply these principles and these ways to achieve it yourself. I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Join us over the next few weeks as we look at specific behaviors we make resolutions about that we don't keep.